I wanted to make a quick video about things that are beneficial to know before moving to the UK. I've been here for a couple of years now and I've accumulated some knowledge over the time, and I think that in hindsight it might have been really useful for me to know it upfront. So I'm going to share a bit of my knowledge based on my experience, of course, and hopefully you find it useful if you're still trying to decide whether to move over or not. So let's get into it. I've made some notes on my phone, so if I keep referring down, it's because I'm looking at the notes. The first one is weather. It's public knowledge that it is quite gloomy in the UK. It rains quite a lot. The weather is not as sunny as maybe South Africa, Australia, or even America. The weather has quite an effect on your mood. Winter blues are a reality. Summer doesn't last that long, so the duration of your year is made up of really darker periods, like in terms of sunlight and the sun being out and stuff, and it rains quite a lot. I personally don't mind the rain. Something that I have found a lot this year is that the gloomier periods have affected my mood quite a lot. If it's really gloomy, my mood will go low. If it's not so gloomy, my mood will be more upbeat. There's ways that you can get around that. You can get a lamp of some sort. I know they sell it on Amazon. The rays of the light will contribute to your mood, so it acts as though it is the sun and the sun is out. Private healthcare. This one might be a bit of a contentious one. During your visa process, one of the costs that you have to pay is your medical surcharge, and that chunky amount will give you access to NHS facilities, NHS doctors, public healthcare basically, and you have access to that like full on. The only issue with that is that because it's a public healthcare system, the resources are sometimes really constrained, which means that you'll have to wait a really long period of time to get access to the care that you need. You'll find yourself waiting quite a lot, even for things that you might want help like really quickly. Last year I was really sick for a bit, and I just found myself like really frustrated by just not getting the help that I needed as quickly as I needed it. The other thing that it's really helped with is specialized services. My recommendation would be to have private healthcare if you can afford it. I am quite privileged in the sense that my company has it as part of the benefits, and so I have access to private healthcare or medical care for certain things. Some of the things that I have been able to access are physiotherapy. There was a point 2 years ago where my knee injury was so painful. I was in so much pain all the time, and I had to see a physiotherapist, a specialist, to kind of see what was going on with my knee and my back. And they had to do MRI scans in different areas, and if you've ever done an MRI scan, you know how expensive it can be. And I had to do x-rays, and even those consultations were quite a chunky amount, but I got the care that I needed very quickly. So if you're coming over and you're still negotiating your contract, this might be something to include in there, to say, can you include the private healthcare benefit within my employment contract? Because that will be really beneficial. The other thing that private healthcare helps with is mental health care. I'm able to see like a psychologist, and I think if you want a psychiatrist as well, under the benefit that I'm in, you can get that. Access to those kind of facilities and just that kind of service will be really, really helpful in making your stay here as comfortable as it can be, because there's nothing as off-putting as being really sick and just being put on a waiting list. To put this in the back of your head, I don't mean to alarm anyone. It definitely isn't something that's a crisis, but it is a nice to have. Other things that I wasn't too privy of is how intentional you need to be about making friendships. As an adult, I think it's a topic that comes up quite a lot. After a certain age, it becomes really difficult to maintain and keep really quality friendships. It's something that you really have to be intentional about, I found, whilst you're living in the UK. Even if you're living anywhere else in the world, if you're moving from your comfort zone and your area where you were initially born, or where you've grown up for majority of your life, it becomes really challenging to figure out the nuances and how people kind of I don't know, gravitate towards each other. The way the social scene is also set up makes it quite difficult to make friendships naturally. So you have to kind of go out of your way to be intentional about making friendships with people. It's a trial and error thing, and you do eventually figure it out. I've mentioned in another one of my videos that I'm still trying to figure it out myself, but navigating that is something that is a long process. You have to be really, really patient with yourself, patient with the process. Try and put yourself out there as much as is comfortable. And also, I think that the thing that makes it challenging as well is the fact that there are a lot of immigrants. So people who move from other countries, and maybe they might be here for 1 or 2 years and then they move on with their lives. And so you might make a really good friend and then they leave, and then you're back to square one. So yeah, if you're someone who values quality friendships and just good people around you, I think that's probably something to be conscious of, is building a community that will last you for the long haul rather than the short term. Another lighter one is the food. So I love the food in the UK, but I know from my experience with being around other people and my friends that people find the food quite bland or just, yeah, not quite fitting to their palate. I find that I quite enjoy the food just because the taste is not as it's not as dialed up, so to say. If you are someone who likes making food from home, making home cooked food, African food, there are a lot of African shops. Let me not say a lot. There are African shops. So depending on what neighborhood you live in, you can get access to Millie Meal, Istanbul, Samp, what other African food? Oh, like spices, iraja, and specific things that we would eat at home. There's also quite a lot of Asian type of stores that are specifically tailored to Asian culture foods. Some people make a way to buy in bulk and they share with other families, and it makes it easier. So that is probably something to try and find out if you can. Buy maybe meat in bulk and share it or split it with another family, so that you're still getting the feel of being at home. The other element that is probably really important to be conscious of is how expensive childcare is. Being surrounded by friends that have children, it makes me realize how strenuous and how expensive childcare is. With childcare, it's a lot of money, and there's ways to make it lesser, like to kind of budget around it. So maybe sending a child to daycare for part of the days in the week. When you have a really strong community, you can split, so have one family look after the kids for some of the time, and then another family, like you kind of do a swap and rotate around the families, which I think is quite smart and helpful. But on the flip side of that, once your little one turns 5, yeah, I think it's 5, the age of 5, when they have to go to school, like to primary school, then education is free. So as long as you can endure those initial years and you can kind of budget or preempt the cost up front, I think you should be fine. It is a sacrifice to make, but it's something that you should be okay doing. But it is something to be aware of. Where you have more than one child, it becomes a bit impractical for both parents to be working. So maybe one of the parents will have to kind of work part-time and then the other will work full-on, just so that it makes financial sense to take care of the kids and have them with a parent that's present, and also not just suffering financially too much. So yeah, that's probably some of the things that you need to be aware of. For people who don't have children as well, it might be something to consider. Like if you are planning to station your life here for a couple of years, you might not have a child coming into the country, but eventually you don't know what will happen down the line. So you have to keep that at the back of your head. The other one is the arrangements, the living arrangements. So this is probably something that I hadn't preempted going into it, is that a lot of adults have to share accommodation. And that's such a strange concept coming from a country where achievement is almost measured by independence. And the idea of sharing a flat as a 30-year-old is, yeah, it's just unusual. But yes, in the UK, I found that you have to share if you want to manage your costs. And it does make financial sense in most cases to share accommodation. There's different ways of sharing as well. You can live in a shared apartment, so like just splitting the cost between one or two of your mates, or you can stay with absolute strangers and live in a shared house. Even families rent houses, which is also a strange thing. Probably on the flip side of that also is the public transport system. Where I come from, if you use public transport, and this is South Africa, it means that you're probably you probably don't have as much money, so to put it. So if you're using a taxi, it means you can't afford a car as yet, and you hope that one day you would be able to afford a car. Whereas in the UK, trains and buses and trams are used by all types of people. It just makes more sense. Like, it is more efficient, and I don't think there is a class thing attached too much to using public transport. You'll often find, like in my case, some of my directors and my seniors use the same public transport that I use, which is quite different from how things would be back at home. Another one that I think will be very, very useful, coming into the country for the very first time, you want to set your life up quite quickly. Some of the things that you can do already is setting up like a bank account. I found that having two bank accounts works really well for me. So one where I like use my normal day-to-days, and then another account where I put my savings in it. It will depend on you how you wanna do it. Figuring out how to build your credit score, and this is something that you can read up on personally. But if you're looking at it and you're having foresight over your life, if you would like to remain in the UK for a longer period of time, you'll probably need to at some point start financing certain assets. Something that you might want to do is start building your credit score as soon as most practical. Exchanging your license. So if you're a South African, you can exchange your South African license for an international license. This will make driving around much easier for you and possible, because obviously you can't drive without a license. In the first 12 months as a South African, you will be able to drive with your South African license. So that will be until the end of the 12 months. Thereafter, you'll definitely need a international license to drive around. If you're not South African, have a look at the guidance on the UK website. I think that there are a number of countries that are listed there that are exempt from having to redo the whole driving process, because good Lord, I would not want to redo my license. Small things that will make your life easier, like figuring out how to send money home. There's different ways, depending on which country you're from, of ways to send money to your family. I personally use Investec, so it's not too tricky to kind of send money. I know PayPal is one way to kind of convert your money, but yeah, I'll try and link some resources below so that it's easier for you to find out how to send money home if that is something that you need to be doing. I probably missed out a whole lot more, but this is the last point that I'm gonna point out. This is probably one of the more important ones. It's something that you should figure out quicker rather than later. Figure out the vision. I know I'm making it sound deeper than it is, but it's good that when you move from where you're currently stationed to move to a different country, that you have really strong reasons for doing that, and you're not just going with the wind. And I think that when I initially moved to the UK, that's probably what happened. I was going with the wind. I hadn't figured out what I wanted to do with my articles, like post my articles. So once I finished my qualification, and I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do, and this opportunity came up, and I was like, well, it makes sense for me to be in another country, let's go. And the plan was I was just gonna stay for a year and figure it out and go back home after a year. But at least 6 months into it, I started realizing that no, actually I was gonna stay a bit longer. And I think at that point, had I had the foresight and the vision of what I wanted for my life, I would have made really different decisions. One of the things that I realized was that the visa that I was on was not going to support my right to remain. And that's a long story for another day. But basically, the visa that I was on doesn't support right to remain, and therefore the years that I stayed prior to moving to the correct visa didn't count too much for anything really. And that's one of the decisions that I think, had I had the foresight of what I was trying to do, I would have kind of, it would have helped. So some other things that your vision will play a part in is if you know how long you're planning on being in the country, what it is that you intend to do while you're here, then you'll make different decisions for your career, for your life, for your finances, because you kind of have a driving force of like exactly what it is that you plan to do in the future. Yes, it might be that everyone is moving and it's safer in the UK and you want a first world life, and you just, you're tired of maybe load shedding and all of that stuff. But if you look at the bigger, grander scheme of things, it's important to have foresight, make a bigger plan so that your decisions are kind of fueled by your bigger plan. I hope this makes sense, but yeah, if you're an adult, I think you'll get it. Is that it's good to kind of have foresight over what it is that you're trying to do with your life, so that the decisions that you make, and when the going gets tough as well, you're able to endure it and stick it out. I hope this video has been useful to you, and I am trying to make a few more videos just to share my knowledge on my move to the UK, my life and how it's been in the UK, and also the things that I am experiencing, and I'll share it with you as much as I think is comfortable for me. If you found this video useful, please like the video because I think it helps with the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing more content like that. I do vlogs, which I thoroughly enjoy, about my life in Manchester most of the time. I also am interested in health and holistic wellness. You'll find a lot of those topics on this channel. Subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and share this video with anyone who might be interested, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.